Hey everybody, it's Sean. In the previous video, I walked you guys through how to import data from programs like Word and Excel into InDesign. This is a great shortcut to saving you all sorts of time in terms of having to format your own tables in InDesign. In this video, I'm going to be walking you through how to change this sort of chart to look more like this sort of chart. We'll be doing it with paragraph styles, character styles, table styles, and cell styles. So let's jump on in and get started. So I'm going to jump back into our document that we just previously worked on, and I want to make a few changes to this. What I would like to do is I'd like to add a header row and a footer row. And to do that, what we can do is we can select the entire, select the entire chart. We can right click and go to Table Options, Table Setup. So this is the same thing as if you went up to Table and Create New Table from scratch, but we're sort of working with a pre-formatted one. So this is where you find the options to sort of go back in and deal with some stuff. What I'd like to do is I'd like to add a header row. This is going to be where we move the title back up to. And I'd like to make a footer row. This is where the total is actually going to disappear to. So let's deal with that. And then just for fun, I'm going to add a border to it. We'll probably be getting rid of that really soon. So we can still keep that. Things like fills and whatnot, we'll come back to. I don't want to get too far into this and start confusing everybody. So let's just jump back into our table here. Boom. I'm going to drag this line down because what you might have noticed is you had overset text in your title. And the first thing that I'm going to work on is copying and pasting the title into its header row. So copy, paste. Okay, cool. And what you notice if I hit W and go into preview mode is the header row comes with a border between it and the actual table, and same with the footer row. There's a reason for this. It has to do with styles. When we get into that in a little bit, you can affect things that only happen in the header and only happen in the footer and create rules around them. It's a pretty useful thing if you're working on a table that has like financial information. It's usually pretty good to set up a footer row, especially. Also, things like calendars. You might want to create a footer row so that you can input all of the names of the holidays that appear throughout a month. If you're a little tight on cell space to be able to actually write them in the appropriate cells for that day of the month. Just giving you guys a little bit of a hint there. So what we can do is I'm going to switch back into our work mode so we can see the cells better. I'm going to select this row by placing my cursor just to the left of the cell. When you get the arrow that faces directly to the cell, it lets you highlight that entire row. And I want to get rid of this row. So you can either right click and hit delete row, or there's a keyboard shortcut for it, Command return. So Command backspace or Command delete. So I'm going to delete it there using Command delete. And we're going to come down and we're going to do the same thing with the total. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it into the footer row. I'm going to come to the left here, select our entire row, Command delete, and it is gone. I know it looks like we have the exact same table now, but I promise you it's just slightly different. It has a header and a footer, and we're off to a pretty good start. So if we select our entire table, there we go, and we go back up to table options, table setup, I would like to figure out why it did not create a type. There we go. That's why it didn't create a border. You have to set the type of stroke you'd like. You can set any of these different types. You could get super fancy with a wavy if you want. Maybe you really want to be difficult on people's eyes and go with Japanese dots. I don't know. But for now, we're going to leave it with a stroke of 1 and it's black. The thing that I would like to point out to you guys is this stroke drawing order. Stroke drawing actually dictates how the strokes interact with one another from columns going up and down and rows going left and right. So if we create you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hit OK in there for now. And I'm going to jump up to our stroke menu here. And I'm going to illustrate to you guys what this does. So I'm going to hit 1 PT for the stroke. I'm going to set it to be solid. And now we have we have strokes on every single cell. And this is going to help me demonstrate to you what those stroke options do. So if I go into table setup, I go to column strokes, we have all of that lovely stuff set up, and I can change this to be cyan. I can change this to be cyan as well. We're just going to make every column be cyan. And then I'm going to go to row strokes, and I'm going to set this to be, magenta. I'm going to set this to be magenta, and everything else should be fine. Cool. So if we hit OK, and we come off of our highlight here, you'll see that the strokes are joining at the center here. One is not going over the other. They are just joining in the middle to create a nice harmonious sort of effect. I'm going to select our entire table one more time. I'm going to go up to table options, table setup. And I'm going to change this to say row strokes in front. So this means that the row strokes are going to be in front of the column strokes. And what you should notice is, yep, the magenta carries all the way across and the cyan carries all the way underneath. And we can go back to table options, table setup. And we can do it the other way with column strokes in front. And you can pretty much guess what's going to happen. The column strokes are going to be in front. So this is just something to be aware of. There are times where in your designs, row strokes in front might actually come in handy. And if we look back at our demonstration, I know there are no stroke. It doesn't look like there are any strokes here, but this gap between the cell, that's actually a column stroke. It's a column stroke being filled with the color of paper or the color of white. So you can see that if we did decide to have a row stroke going across the chart, having our column stroke sitting on top of it would be critical to achieving this look. In this case, we're not actually going to be diving into that, but it's just something for you to be aware of. It's a nice little feature. I'm going to come back into our into our working document, and I'm just going to undo all of these changes until we are back at our outlined table with column strokes and row strokes that are all black. Cool. Now, what do we have to start working on in order to get this going? What I'd like to do is I would like to start up here with the title, since it seems like a natural place to go. And what I want to do is I want to highlight the title, the header row, and I would like to get rid of all of the strokes. So I can just hit down or set it to 0, and we don't have any strokes surrounding our header anymore. Looks a little bit strange. I promise it'll get easier. What I would like to do is I would like to change this from Arial to, let's go with, I'm going to go with Century Pro again. Century Gothic Pro Bold. You guys can use any typefaces you'd like, any serif or sans serif. I just find that this is the easiest option for me. I'm going to make this all caps, and I'm going to switch it from 10 points probably up to about 20. And if you're not working on preview mode like me, you'll notice that it automatically told us, oh, there's something in this cell that's too big to be displayed, and you have to make an adjustment. So what we have to do is we have to click on the line here and just drag it down to make it so that the title is actually visible. And this title is sitting awfully close to the sort of subheadings of our chart here. So what we can do is we can highlight our text, and there's a bunch of new options that actually become available when you start dealing with tables. And if you have your table panel open here, what you'll notice is we have a few different options right here, and this tells you how to align the text within the cell. Right now it's set to align to bottom. I'd actually like it to align to center, and that just bumps it on up and makes it so that it sits within the center of its cell. This is a really sort of crucial thing because otherwise you might think you have to fiddle around with the baseline or leading somehow, and you're just going to make things a lot more messier and complicated than they need to be. So our title is kind of formatted. We're going to leave all the stylistic stuff about colors for a minute, and we're going to come on down and we're going to work on our subheadings. The subheadings also need a little bit of room, so I just clicked and dragged these guys down. I'm going to highlight the whole row by making sure that my cursor is just touching the outside of our table until we get that little arrow icon. You can see it sort of very small wiggling about right there. I'm going to center these guys in their spaces again, but I'm not going to worry about centering them alignment up here. Also, if you didn't want to grab that alignment from the table window, they're available right up in this section too when you have your cells highlighted. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to apply. I'm going to change the I'm going to change the typeface on this again to Century Gothic Pro Bold one more time. There we go. This is going to come down to about 9 points. Lovely. And now I can select, I can select the rest of my text within the body of the table. I'm going to make this Century Gothic Pro Regular. Cool. I'm going to make this 9 points as well. And that looks a little bit nicer. And then this one here, I can create this to be Century Gothic Pro Bold. There we go. 10 works well for me, and that looks about fine. Cool. Great. So now that we have our type sort of worked out, what I would like to do is sort of set some of our paragraph styles. This is going to be pretty crucial for when we start to getting into choosing colors and whatnot. So I'm going to highlight the component word, and I'm going to create a new paragraph style. And I'm going to double click. I'm going to call this subheading. And it's going to take on some basic character formats that we already set. This time though, I'm going to leave the color because we're going to come back and build some of that stuff. And then I'm going to select the word computer, and I'm going to create another paragraph style. This time I'm going to call it table body copy. Cool. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to do the same thing up here with our title, and I'm going to create another paragraph style. This one's going to be called table title. And I'm going to come down here. I'm going to select our total. I'm going to create a new paragraph style, and I'm going to call this table footer. Table total footer. Sorry. There we go. I'm going to hit OK. And now we have everything sort of loosely set up, and it's time to create our color swatches. So with our color swatches, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete all of our swatches that might be sitting in here. I'm just going to hit delete. You're going to be asked to replace things with black. Actually, that's a bad idea because it wanted to replace a cell with black. So let's just hit OK. There we go. We're good to go. And we're going to create a couple new color swatches. So I want to go up to new color swatch. And I had 3 color swatches in my previous one. I had a teal color. You guys can create whichever color schemes you like best. I just know which ones I sort of liked and I went with them. I'm going to I'm going to rename them a color name that I can actually remember. So I'm going to hit OK. And I think it accidentally wanted to add it to a CC library. If you accidentally left that checked, then you might show it up in a CC library. You can just right click it and hit delete. It should still be inside of your swatches panel. And the next time you go to create a new color swatch, just remember to uncheck add to CC library. Now the next color that I created was sort of a peachy color. So I'm just going to go ahead and create that. I'm going to rename it peach. And I'm going to hit OK. And I think the last color I had was like a light bluish gray. Yes. Cool. So let's create this. Whoops. New color swatch. And it's time to create gray. So I'm going to do about there. I want a little bit of blue in this gray. Personally, that's just for me. And I'm going to rename this gray. We're going to hit OK. And we're about ready to get going. So the next thing we can do is we can come and we can work on our component cell. So to work on the component cell, what we have to do is click and drag and like sort of pull slowly until you highlight the entire cell. And we can start making some really nice options here. So we can get rid of the stroke completely. And what I want to do is I want to come over to the stroke window beside it. And I want to select every, all I want, is the right hand wall and the left hand wall. I do want the right and left hand wall, now that I think about it. We are going to fill it with teal, okay? And we're going to make the stroke color paper. We're going to apply a 2-point stroke to our walls, and we're going to hit OK. Or we're just going to come out of the selection here. And what you'll notice is if we jump out of here and we preview it, we have a cell that has a teal color fill. It looks as though there's nothing happening or that this has been shifted over. It's just our stroke being applied to everything. And if you want to bring your component title in, you can just hit the space bar and sort of bring it in a little bit if you'd like. Or if you want to get really fancy, you could use your left indent tool and bring it in via the left indent. That way you don't have to worry about any extra formatting sort of errors happening. And we could actually do that for the entire panel. So we could, I wonder, yes, we could. So you can use this option over here, left cell inset. We can bring it over 5, and then we can actually remove our, there we go. We can remove our left indent, and now everything is nicely centered. So with our cell, we have made some serious adjustments to it, and I'd like to close our swatches panel, bring over our table window, and I'm going to go under cell styles. Cell styles I equate to something similar to a character style. It acts as though it only applies to one cell, so we're going to hit New Cell Style. We're going to double click on Cell Style 1, and it'll open up a dialog box, and we can call this Subheading. Because we've already applied all of our settings to it, we don't really have to worry about too much in these menus, but just to run through it with you, there can be a style based on another style. You can tell it that you want your cell style to include the paragraph style of subheading. This is really crucial. If we didn't go and set all of these to the same style already, it would make the changes. Text, we've definitely gone and adjusted some of the text options. We can leave the vertical justification to align it to center, and we don't need to adjust anything else in here. If there was a graphic, you could tell it how to be aligned. Strokes and fills, we went and applied a stroke to the left wall and the right wall already. And if we uncheck the top wall and bottom wall, you'll notice that you can see our settings that have been applied. Diagonal lines, this is useful if you have a cell that's empty and you don't want it to be filled with information, but you still need it to be present. We'll look at that as we get down to our NA options here. But for now, we can hit OK. So we have our subheading cell style now, and we can use our cursor to get this facing arrow and select the entire row, and we can apply the subheading style to it. Subheading clear overrides. There we go. And now we have our subheadings applied to everything, which is great. We can actually jump back into our paragraph styles over here, double click on subheading, change the character color from black to white, hit OK, and there we go. So that's great. Now, if you want to make little tiny changes, like making sure that this is aligned properly, you can just go and highlight it and jump the alignment over. For little tiny things like this, it's not the end of the world. What I would suggest is just making these changes very sparingly outside of your paragraph styles. Sorry, I'm just doing some quick minor adjustments like so. Lovely. And what I want to do is I actually want to start, we're going to work on our title. Okay. Cool. So we're going to work on our title, and the first thing that I want to do is I want to apply our peach color to it. That's a very muted peach color, so I'm actually going to go in and adjust it. I want it to be a lot more saturated of a peach color. There we go. How does that? That might be a little bit nicer. You know, I'm going to actually keep adjusting it into the reds, make it deeper. There we go. That's a good peach color. Cool. What we can do now is we can go up to paragraph styles, and we see our table title has our override. We can hit redefine style, and now our new peach color will take effect. Everything there looks great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and select our entire body section of this chart. I'm going to click on all of our stroke options, and I'm going to type in 0. I'm going to just select out of it, and all of our strokes are gone, which looks pretty good to me. But what I actually want to do is, this is going to be easier to see if we jump into our table styles, and we can actually, I'm going to jump out of preview mode so I can see my cells a little bit better. I'm going to select my entire table. I'm going to come up and create a new table style. I'm going to call this vlog equipment table. And under fills, I'd like to do an alternating pattern of every other row. I'd like it to be filled with my gray color. And I would like it to start on row 2. And next could be 2. Oh, sorry. Next could be, actually, sorry, I want the first row and the next row, so it actually does do alternating. I meant to hit skip the first row. So when it's talking about which row it's skipping, it will ignore the header row. That's kind of crucial. That's another reason why we input a header. It will also ignore the footer row. So that's another reason why we have a footer. What it will not ignore is the subheading row. Because that's part of our body, it will think, oh, I need to fill this row. It doesn't. We want it to skip it and fill the first row of our components, and so on and so forth. So we can hit OK, and we can look at our table once again. It's looking pretty close. What I would like, though, is to continue this white stroke going down the page. So we can click and drag and select all of our body cells. And we can unselect the top row in this chart. We can unselect the bottom row, or the bottom wall, rather. And we can have the left and right rows selected. Remember, this was a 2-point stroke. This was actually a white stroke. And hopefully, okay, it did not want to take effect there. So we have to come back over here and hit paper. And we need this to be 2. We can hit enter. And we're getting there. Okay, so I wonder if we could use our table style. Could we though? Let's try. So let's use our table style. Column strokes. We don't want it to be every other column. We want it to be every column. We want it to be black. Sorry, we want it to be paper. We also want this to be paper. We want this to be 2. And we would like this to be 2. Oh, sorry, I lied. We want the columns to be 1, and we want the points to be 2. 2 and 2. Cool. We could add a type of stroke. We want it to be solid. So there we have it. And we can hit OK. We can see what happened. It still doesn't want to play nicely with us. Okay, so tables can be really, really frustrating to handle here. So don't worry if it's kind of causing you any sort of problems. Lord knows it wants to test me all the time. Oh, come on. Let's go. Okay. Ah! Okay, let's try and do it this way. So we've created a cell style technically, right, for this cell. So we can come up here to cell styles. We can hit new. We can call this body cell. We can hit OK. And we can select all of our cells. We can apply a body cell. And we can clear all overrides. There we go. Now we got it nice and quickly. Saved us a lot of time from having to go in and manually apply that stroke fill to every single component. Now, what's the next thing? The next thing, it looks like we have to change the body copy color. Cool. So to do that, we can go back under our paragraph styles to table body copy. And we can go under color and apply the teal color. You can hit OK. And it only wanted to apply it to the one section, not a problem. We can highlight our entire section, apply body copy. It might revert some of your formatting options like it just did for me. That's not a problem because we can just quickly highlight a section. We can realign everything how it's supposed to be. Realign to the right. And then realign to the center. All good. Cool. And now I think the next thing that we want to do is we would like to adjust how far these things are sitting from the edge. So we're going to go in and left justify or adjust the sort of spacing to the left by 5. And we're going to do that with this column as well, except on the right-hand side. So we're going to go 5 in from the right. And now everything has a nice bit of breathable space. We actually have to do this column as well to the left. There we go. Cool. Everything is nicely spaced out now. And it looks like we can just quickly go in and deal with this cell here where it says NA. By selecting it, we can create a new cell style, and we can call this N/A. We can go under diagonal lines, and you have a few different options here. We can apply a top right to bottom diagonal line. We can give it a stroke fill of 1. I'm going to apply a black with a tint of 30%, and I want a solid stroke. And we can draw diagonal in front, hit preview, and you can see how it puts in one line. We could leave it like that if you like. You could do it the other way around. You could put in no diagonal lines, or if you wanted, you could do an X. I think I'm actually going to do it as an X. We're going to hit OK. And I'm actually just going to get rid of that NA. And now that I look at this, I realized it actually makes more sense if we fill our diagonal lines with 100% teal. There we go. And we can actually beef up this stroke a little bit, maybe to 2, since all of our strokes seem to be 2, which is great. And we can come in here. We can highlight very carefully. We can try and highlight the cell. Come on, there we go. And we can apply our NA style to it as well. And we can just X out the NA. Can leave it like that. Totally up to you. It's just a different way to showcase that there is a non-applicable piece of information in this cell happening here. And now what do we do to deal with our footer? You can tell our footer seems to have a bunch of different cells within the bottom row here. I want to get rid of all of those cells, so I'm just going to come up to the top, having them highlighted, and hit merge cell. So now this creates just one big ol' happy cell, and we're kind of We're fine with it. We can select the entire row and we can select all of our strokes. We can hit 0. And if we take a peek in preview mode here, you'll notice our footer now has no stroke. But what I do want is to actually really accentuate the total. I want to make sure that our client knows how much the total setup of this vlog will cost. And so to do that, I'm going to highlight the entire cell very carefully. You can tell it's really giving me a hard time here. Come on. There we go. There's our cell. And I'd like to add a stroke of 2. I'd like it to be a peach color, and I'm just doing that by coming on up to the top here, applying my stroke options. And now I have my stroke around the title. I'm going to change the type color from black to our teal color to match everything else. And there you have it. Now what I'm actually going to double check to do is highlight our cell one more time, come over to cell styles, and I'm going to create a new one and call this footer cell, or footer total cell. Okay, cool. And paragraph styles, I'd like to apply the table total footer style to it. This will probably change our type color back, but we'll make an adjustment to that in a second, and I can hit OK. Oh, terrific. It didn't want to change that. So if we go back under paragraph styles, you'll see that our table total footer has an override. I'm just going to hit redefine so that it includes our teal color here and it won't make any adjustments. Terrific. So that looks like a pretty well formatted table. It looks very similar to the table that we have over here. I just have some minor formatting options that I didn't go through and do. And now that's probably all that I really want to take care of. This blue grayish color actually seems to be a little bit on the dark side. So I'm going to double click the gray swatch and I'm going to make it 5% instead of 10%. And I'm going to make it maybe 3% blue. There we go. Now it looks a little bit more light and airy. And the nice thing is that all of that gray color auto adjusts at the same time. That's the benefit of using swatches and linking them to your styles. You'll get a lot more control, a lot faster. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how to format a table in Adobe InDesign. I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya!